Let's talk about 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, which is the sequel to 20 Years Later, which we just got last week. We've done a ton of videos already, and we still got a couple more videos I want to do on this film, so stay tuned for those. But let's talk about what The Bone Temple could be about. So with the end of the 28 Years Later film, and of course spoilers ahead for 20 Years Later, we're going to give full deep dives into what had happened at the end and where does that go into The Bone Temple. So you've been warned. Let's get into it. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. 50,000 subscribers is our big goal. But on January 16th, 2026, we will see the new film 20 Years Later, The Bone Temple, written by Alex Garland and directed by Nia DaCosta. And this is going to bring back all of the characters that we came to learn about in 20 Years Later, because these films were shot back to back. So Alfie Williams returns as Spike, Aaron Taylor Johnson as Jamie, Jack O'Connell as Sir Jimmy Crystal, and of course you have a apparent Cillian Murphy in this film at the end, but more on that towards the end of the video. So what do I think is The Bone Temple going to be about? So let's start off with how did 28 Years Later even end? So at the end of 20 Years Later, we saw that Spike and his mother Isla went off into the mainland to find Dr. Ian Kelson, who was played by Ralph Fiennes. Spike wanted to learn what was going on with his mother. Eventually, Dr. Ian Kelson came to the conclusion that Isla was dying from cancer. She herself also had a hunch that that's what it was, and Dr. Ian Kelson decides to give Isla a choice to choose how she is going to die, and she chooses to take a bunch of morphine in order to induce herself dying. And Spike was going to be against this, but Dr. Ian Kelson gave him a sedative in order to be able to do this. And Dr. Ian Kelson does this at the Bone Temple, which is where he has sort of put together a ton of bones of infected and non-infected together as almost a reminder of memento mori, remember you must die. And he also says, but also memento amoris, which remembers to love. And it kind of makes Spike grow a lot more. This whole movie 20 Years Later was about coming of age, adulthood. Spike is entering adulthood. He learns things from his father at the beginning of the film, but it feels very one-dimensional of sorts and just survival. But from his mother and Dr. Ian Kelson, he learns more nuance and more about love and about the choices one makes when you turn into an adult. And so he decides that he still wants to learn more, and he ventures off into the mainland by himself at the end of the film. But he also goes back to Holy Island, where his father is at, in order to deliver a baby. And we saw that this baby was a baby born out of an infected, but the baby itself is not infected. And we see that he has left the baby in Jamie's care, and he has named the baby after his mother, Isla. Now Spike is on his own in the mainland to find his purpose of sorts, but before the film ends, he comes across the Jimmies, this very eccentric cult led by Sir Jimmy Crystal, played by Jack O'Connell. And that's pretty much where the movie ends. So what is the Bone Temple going to explore? Alex Garland talked about the Bone Temple exploring the nature of evil, whereas 20 Years Later explored the nature of family. So I think we're going to see these different types of evil, and I think it's going to start off with the Jimmies. The Jimmies are a cult that is seemingly like identifying as Jimmy Savile, in my opinion, which I talked about in the video called Jimmy Explained. Go check that out if you haven't. And I think that this cult is sort of stuck in a moment in time. Jimmy is the kid that we learn about at the beginning of 20 Years Later, who is watching the Teletubbies with his cousins when the infection starts and when he's trying to find out what to do. His father, who is a priest of sorts, gives him a crucifix that he wears as well now as an adult, and I feel like Jimmy sort of gets stunted here and feels that he is sort of like the one that everybody needs to follow, right? Like he feels like he's some sort of prophet, because imagine as a young child, Jimmy is here scared, terrified, does not know what the outbreak is, what is going on. All he knows is that he saw all of his family get slaughtered and killed by the infected, and now he is the only one that survived. He feels some sort of God complex, you could even say at this point, that he is a survivor. He is the one that's going to go forth into society and bring the change that's needed, right? And this is all speculation from me, right? This is just me, what I get from this. Could be totally wrong and they could do something totally different, but I think that Jimmy feels this heightened sense of, I'm the boss and everybody should listen to me because I survived, right? And I think that Spike is in danger of sorts. I feel like what Alex Garland is sort of getting to with 20 Years Later is indoctrination. We see the indoctrination that Spike seemingly is going into with Holy Island. His father is trying to mold him into something. And I think also Spike starts to realize this well, and also sees through his father, who makes these tall tales and is also cheating on his dying mother, which kind of makes Spike lose all respect for his father in the same time and grow out of that sort of toxic indoctrination his father's trying to do. And he tries to go out and find his own answers. Jamie called Dr. Ian Kelson a lunatic and a barbaric person, and Spike learns that that is totally the opposite of what Dr. Ian Kelson is doing out here. He is respecting the living nature, and he is sort of honoring those that have fallen, whereas he sees his father is almost like the opposite. In the rest of Holy Island, we see that his father gets like glory and gratification out of killing the Slolos and the family there, when they don't really have to kill them. They're just there, you know. They could sort of respect, right? And it seems that his father's not doing that, which made I feel Jamie's decision of leaving that much more solidified, right? And Dr. Ian Kelson showcased to Jamie that you remember that you must die, remember to love and respect. We see it when Dr. Ian Kelson doesn't kill Samson, the alpha, and I think that's what Jamie is sort of trying to acknowledge with all of this. So what is going to happen in the Bone Temple now that we've set all of that up? So what I think we're going to be seeing is Jamie going out to find Spike. I think that that is going to be the main part of this whole film. Jamie is out here looking for Spike in the mainland, and we see that Spike goes with the Jimmies, and I think the Jimmies will try to mold and push Spike more deeper into their cult of sorts. I think the Jimmies are going to be very barbaric. We've seen that they are almost kind of like loony in a way, the way they act around each other and the infected. It's almost like there is no care in the world. A very cynical way of seeing the world is what the Jimmies have here. They are stunted in time, and they are just trying to cope in the way that they think is the way to cope. I feel like they're almost like agents of chaos of sorts that see the world as gone, and it almost gave me some Mad Max vibes as well, just how like far gone they are, especially compared to people in Holy Island who are sort of trying to go back to a very archaic type of living, and also Dr. Ian Kelson, who is much more compassionate than some of the other humans we've met here. So I think the Jimmies are truly gonna be batshit insane, and it's gonna get pretty dark, I feel, as well. So you got Jamie looking for his son Spike, you got Spike trying to deal with the Jimmies, and the Jimmies trying to mold Spike in some way, but you also have this new baby who I think is going to be an integral part of the whole trilogy, where I think the baby is an anomaly. People are gonna wonder, how did an infected give birth, and are there more infected babies being birthed that we don't know of, and should we stop that, or what should happen here, right? I think that's gonna be a whole thing. Also, we don't know if the baby could be tried for a study or something, or somebody's trying to get the baby for some reason in order to sort of figure out what exactly is going on there. But I think that not only that, you also have to throw in the alpha, who is played by Chi Lewis Perry, who will be returning, that is seemingly the father of that baby, because he looked pretty upset at the end of the film when the mother was killed and the baby was taken. So I think the alpha is also going to be looking for this baby at the same time. So you have this sort of like search party going on for various reasons. Here you have Jamie looking for his son Spike, you have the Jimmies maybe just causing chaos, but also could be intrigued by this new baby that is out there that maybe Spike tells them about, and now they're on the quest to find that baby. So I could see the Jimmies going into Holy Island, and I could also see that Spike tries to stop this or get away from them to warn the others about what's coming with the Jimmies themselves. But I also see that Dr. Ian Kelson is going to be a crucial part about all of this, because the film is called The Bone Temple. So I think we're going to learn that there's something more with this Bone Temple that's happening, or somebody knows something about this Bone Temple that hasn't been introduced. And with that, I definitely think we could see Cillian Murphy's return here because of the Bone Temple. I think Cillian Murphy, there's two possibilities for Cillian Murphy's character of Jim. If you want to follow the ending of the film 28 Days Later, you could definitely see that maybe Cillian Murphy did get saved. They contained the virus for some time. He went somewhere else in Europe or the United States or wherever, and now the virus came back, and now he's not able to get back in, but maybe he's still a big part of like learning about what exactly happened there, because he was at one point there with the infected, and maybe he's been trying to find a way to cure all of this. I don't know if that's the case with Danny Boyle, and he would definitely take that approach, and Alex Garland. It seems a little bit it's going too international, and Danny Boyle and Alex Garland have already talked about how they wanted to keep this a very Britain first film, so it definitely has a very international feel, what I'm saying, right? So my other type of thinking here is that Cillian Murphy didn't get saved at the end of 28 Days Later, and they actually started a commune somewhere else, and they have come across the Jimmies or know about the Jimmies. Maybe this will cross an encounter with Spike and Jim, and maybe they try to sort of like work together with Holy Island and try to see a way forward. I think we'll discover some things about Holy Island as well that might be a little bit darker, because like Alex Garland says, the next film is about the nature of evil, and I think that Alex Garland really tries to maybe make things a little bit more interesting, not just one-dimensional, and maybe showcase the evil not just in the Jimmy code, but maybe with Holy Island as well, and maybe with what's going on with the infected also. I think that we are getting a very layered story here, so I just can't see it just being one villain like the Jimmies and that's it. Now, when speaking about the ending as well, Alex Garland talks about misremembrance and also trying to piece things together and cherry pick our past. They go on to say the whole film, and if we ever get to make it, the whole trilogy is in some ways about looking back and looking forwards, and the relationship between looking forward to better worlds or attempting to make better worlds, or trying to construct the world that you're in on the basis of old worlds. So there's sort of contrast or conflict between the two. And the thing about looking back is how selective memory is, and that it cherry picks and it has amnesia, and crucially also misremembers. And we are living in a time right now which is absolutely dominated by a misremembered past, and so it's that. And that's when they were talking about the Jimmies and all of that. But I also think you could definitely see that with Holy Island. Maybe this is a sort of like town that seemed to be all together. They have it, they know how to move forward and all of this, but they might just be doing some very shady things that they think are the only ways for people to keep on surviving as well. So I think it's going to get into some very dark stuff like that. And I'm going to wait to talk more about that until we get a trailer to really see if that's where it's going. I believe we'll get a trailer before I Know What You Did Last Summer releases, because that's the big next summer release. But Danny Boyle himself has already told us that there is going to be a lot more of Jack O'Connell's character of Jimmy, as well as Ralph Fiennes' Dr. Ian Kelson, and of course Samson, which is the Alpha played by Chi Lewis Perry in the next film, The Bone Temple. So overall, like I said, it is about the nature of evil. I think we're going to learn various things about all of these characters that might have not been in your face in this first film, and I think that goes for everybody from Jamie to Holy Island to the Jimmies to even Dr. Ian Kelson. I think we're going to learn some dark shit that they've done maybe in the past and all of that, and what exactly is evil. I think that's really what we're going to be about in The Bone Temple, like who really is the evil one here, because they did say that the next film, The Bone Temple, is about the nature of evil, and maybe it's all about like if you're born evil or if you're made evil, right? I think that's where we're really heading into, and I think with the culture as well in our society today with men and all of that, I think that's something we're going to be addressing here. I mean, Alex Garland did make a film called Men. I want to talk more about what I think that could definitely be about, but that's going to be a whole other video. This is more just about my initial thoughts on the like bare bones of what the movie is about. And I think the movie at its core, The Bone Temple, is about finding that baby. And I think everybody's going to be after that baby for various reasons, whether it's they want to study it, or in the Alpha's case, maybe that's their child and they want to take it back. Or we could see outside forces learning about the baby and trying to retrieve it. You know, I think that there's a ton of people out here that are going to be wanting to go after that baby, and I think that's the basic premise of The Bone Temple, is that baby, because it sort of is like a rebirth of sorts and almost like a new life, a new chapter. You could see it that way, and I think that's going to make an interesting movie. So I'm excited to see what it's going to be, and very curious to see how Cillian Murphy ties into all of this as well. There's been some theories and stuff like that Cillian Murphy could be related to some of these characters here. I just don't see that. It would definitely be such a stretch if they went that way. I think Cillian Murphy just makes it in here due to circumstance, whether that's if he did make it out of the island in the end of 28 days or if he's still here in some commune of sorts. I think that that's the only logical way to go forward, but Nonetheless, Bone Temple could be surprising just as 28 years later, and I'm here trying to theorize it, but that's all the fun we have here, right? We love talking about movies and what comes next, and as a fan of 28 years later, I'll keep talking about 20 years later until we get that new trailer probably in a month's time. So stay tuned for that, and as always, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Let me know what you think the Bone Temple is going to be about in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you next time on the road to 50,000 subscribers. Let's get to it. As always, stay safe, stay positive.